Since we last spoke, one of my favorite days on the calendar has come and gone. And I find myself in this cyclical relationship with baseball. Now, I love baseball, but I get tired of baseball relatively quickly. But I'll tell you, when I love baseball, I love hard. I'm all in as much as I can. Now, football, it's much more like a long term relationship. It has its ups and downs for sure, but at the end of the day, I'm still coming home to football every night. We're sleeping in the same bed, we're making dinner together, we're trying to raise our kids. But baseball, that's like that fun summer fling that you just can't get enough of, but it's not going to end well. Whew, boy, oh boy, it is definitely baseball season. Hi, hello, and welcome in to the Ball Don't Lie podcast. My name is Austin Elmore. Happy to have you with me and happy to be recording another episode. We are going to get to the football. And as I've said multiple times, that is the main focus of this podcast is Bengals football. But I want to start with a couple of baseball topics. I just mentioned it. Opening day happened last week. And if you know me at all, you know that my favorite day on the calendar every year, no matter what, is opening day. And I don't know that I've ever shared the story of my first opening day and how it kind of just hooked me for what I would assume is going to be the rest of my life. So the year was 2011. The Reds were just coming off of a National League Central Division championship in 2010, and it was a fun time to be a Reds fan. There was optimism, there were good young players, there was a star in Joey Votto who had just won the NL MVP. There was a lot to be excited about. And so when I was in the seventh or eighth grade or whatever it is, I didn't get to go on the yearly field trip to Washington, D.C. And so in 2011, I'm in high school and my dad says, "Hey, do you like let's go on a trip? Do you want to go to Washington D.C. since you didn't get to go a few years ago, or would you rather go to opening day?" And I said, "I'd rather go to opening day. I want to go to opening day." And so we came down to Cincinnati, and I was living in Sydney at the time, an hour and a half north of Cincinnati. And so we come down to Cincinnati the night before the game. They're going to play the Milwaukee Brewers in the 2011 season opener. And we come down the night before the game, and I don't remember every activity that we did, but I do remember just driving around town listening to 700 WLW. And I remember listening to Lance McAllister take calls and people sharing their opening day stories, their opening day memories. And two things happened that night. Number one, I fell in love, like truly fell in love with radio and that medium and that station and that moment. It really like got to me. And secondly, um, I fell in love with opening day. I became like unbelievably excited for like, okay, it's all happening tomorrow. And I think oftentimes in life we'll do this thing where we hype something up and we hype something up and we hype something up, and then it doesn't meet the expectations because we spent so much time hyping it up that we kind of lost the plot a little bit and enjoying just being where our feet are, where we're at. And so as a younger kid, I didn't know this. I hadn't learned these lessons yet. And so I'm hyping it up. Like nothing could bring me down. Like this is going to be the best day ever, right? And so we get to Cincinnati, or we wake up the next day. Everybody is wearing red. The whole town is red. We go up on top of the Carew Tower and we look down on the parade, and it's just a sea of red. It's unbelievable. And we we get to see the parade like in person down on Fountain Square. And then we walked over across the river to Game Works, which is where Mo Egger was broadcasting. And we got to see Mo, got to see him do his show. I got an ESPN 1530 t-shirt. Again, I'm in high school at this time. And again, it just reinforced I fell in love with this idea of broadcasting live and being on opening day and just the whole ginormous part of this being a part of something so big, basically, is what I was trying to say. And so, pretty funny, I get this ESPN 1530 t-shirt, and I wore it a lot over the next several years. I eventually got rid of it because it was full of holes and sleeveless and all this other stuff. But anyways, so we walk back across the bridge, and I'll have to find some photos. I did not want to stop to take pictures. My dad wanted to take pictures of me. I didn't want to stop. I wanted to go to the ballpark. So we get in the ballpark, and wouldn't you know it, like the first person I see when we're walking around center field is Joe Morgan. Joe Morgan walks right past me. And so, like, continually, this day just keeps getting better and better. This is like one of the best days of my life. And so we get to our seats, bleachers, left field, second deck. Edinson Volquez is starting the game for the Reds in 2011. And the first two batters he faces, Ricky Weeks, and I can never remember the other guy's name for the Milwaukee Brewers, both of them deposit balls into the left field seats. So before an out is recorded, one of them landed right behind us. Before an out is recorded, Milwaukee is up 2-0 to start the 2011 season. And so I'm like, well, there's a crash and burn back to reality. But wouldn't you know that in the bottom of the ninth inning, after trailing all game, the Reds came back and won on a walk-off 3-run home run by Ramon Hernandez, the catcher at the time for those Reds. And I have never heard a stadium that loud. I've never felt like the shaking like it was then. Because if you remember in the 2010 season, the iconic moment was Jay Bruce hitting a walk-off home run to clinch the National League Central and send the Reds to the playoffs. Well, here they are starting 2011 the way they ended 2010 with another clutch, late rally, 3-run homer off of John Axford. And in that moment, all of the hype from opening day lived up to the game. The game lived up to all the hype. And from that moment, I was hooked. And I remember talking to my dad, like, we're going to do this every year until we can. And we have done it every year unless we couldn't, COVID or they weren't starting the season on the at home or whatever it was. And my dad shared with me on opening day. I think this was his 17th. I think this was my 13th. So I was kind of reflecting on that this week, and as opening day was happening, because a bunch of my friends came down for opening day. And many of them, it was their first opening day. And I really wanted it to go perfect for them. I wanted it to go really well. And it seems like they all had a great time, and everybody experiences it different. And I'm very thankful for the support that they showed me. It's ridiculous. I don't deserve it. It's crazy. But seriously, I'm incredibly thankful. But I was just like reflecting on all that this week. And I don't know that I realized how pivotal I don't know that I realized how pivotal that moment was in shaping me and my career and who I am. And that means a lot to me. Like, there's always going to be a special connection with that day and that moment and with my dad. That's going to mean a lot to me, always, forever. And all the memories that we have had at opening days ever since. With my dad, and sometimes it's hard to talk about. I just get all choked up, but I'm just thankful. Opening day means a lot to me, and this year, obviously, the Reds did not perform well in the final inning, but it was a really, really good day, and I'm glad I got to experience it again. And it's one of the things about baseball I love is just like on opening day, everybody has hope, everybody's excited. Everybody believes that their team can go on a run. And it just is like the start of summer. Even though it's 40 degrees or 50 degrees or whatever it is, it's the start of summer. And even though they lost, opening day will always be my favorite day on the calendar. So thankful for that. And I do want to touch briefly on one baseball topic. So switching gears here a little bit. There was a barrage of home runs hit by the New York Yankees in their opening 3-game set against the Milwaukee Brewers. And people picked up on the fact that the Yankees are using a different style of bat. Many of the Yankees players are using a different style of bat. They call them torpedo bats. Basically, what this means is they've put more wood in the barrel part of the bat that you make more contact with, or you're supposed to make more contact with, and taken less wood from the ends, basically to beef up the strongest part of the bat where you make contact the most. All this is in within the rules of Major League Baseball. You are allowed to do that. Your bat can kind of look however you want. There are restrictions on length, there are restrictions on weight, there are restrictions on width. But all of the bats that the Yankees were using, and apparently a lot of people across Major League Baseball have been using, they all fit within those rules set forth by Major League Baseball. And now it's the talk of the town. Now, many were like, okay, well, these bats are unfair because the Yankees just hit like 17 home runs in a 3-game series. Number one, they play in the smallest ballpark in the United States. Yankee Stadium is tiny and balls fly out of there like crazy. Number two, the Milwaukee Brewers might have the worst pitching staff in baseball. They have 6 starting pitchers on the injured list. And number three, I think Milwaukee's just not good. And the Yankees have a bunch of good hitters. Aaron Judge hit like 5 of those home runs. So him in and of himself could do that with a regular bat, not just with the torpedo bats. So big deal, I think. No big deal, I think, is what I'm trying to say. And I'm excited about it. And it actually was something I got to see firsthand on Tuesday or Monday night. I went to the Reds game right after being there on Thursday. Shout out to my guy, Johnny Salzarulo, who sent me a DM, said, hey, I got a couple of extra tickets. Do you want to come? I said, yeah. So me and my roommate go down. We got Scouts Club tickets for free. Like, that's insane. That's so kind. Thank you, Johnny. And the Reds put up 14 runs. Elly De La Cruz homered twice and drove in 7 of those 14 runs. It was really, really exciting. That's my thing with like great players, and especially with Elly, because Ellie's probably not going to be a Red 5 years from now. But he is for the next several years. And so because of that, I get to enjoy watching him play baseball. So I'm going to enjoy watching him play baseball, even if the team might falter, it might fail. There are real expectations on them this year because of Terry Francona. But, I'm trying not to get too caught up in that. I'm trying to do my duty as a fan, which is to hold them accountable and demand greatness and demand that they are in aggressive pursuit of a championship. I'm trying to do that, but also be a human being and just enjoy watching great players like Elly De La Cruz, like Matt McLain, like Hunter Green, and see where that takes us. So had a great time at the ballpark. I bought that Tuesday pass, $50 for like 12 games every Tuesday home. It just makes too much sense for us. We live 15 minutes from the ballpark. So we're going to be doing that, and very excited about that. All right. Do you want to talk a little bit about football? I reckon we've got some time. I reckon. All right. So here's what's going on in the NFL. Not much, but what's going on in Palm Beach, Florida, is the 2025 NFL annual meetings. The annual meeting is happening in Florida right now. And basically all the coaches get together, a bunch of front office people get together, everybody, they start voting on rule changes and proposals, and the media comes down and they meet with the media, and it's just a touching base point really to figure out the goals for the league in the following year, where they stand on some rule changes, figure out some scheduling stuff, and so on. And so Zac Taylor yesterday, the Bengals head coach, met with the media for 55 minutes. This is always one of the best days of the year because they're crowded around this little breakfast table that seats like 8 people, and then there's 15 people surrounding him. Zac talked for 55 minutes. He was the first one in. He was the last one out. If that's any indication of just how important this offseason is and the amount of questions that Zac Taylor has, well, there you go. So a lot of topics for Zac to be covered, for Zac to cover. So what I did is I went through Paul Dehner Jr.'s Twitter feed. Paul covers the Bengals for The Athletic, and he wrote this kind of timeline of list of things that Zac was reacting to and Zac was saying. And so I'm going to read for you what Zac was saying, and then I'm going to give you my reaction to it. So let's start with this. Zac Taylor said that the Bengals are likely done with free agent guards until the draft. Then they'll see where it goes. Now, if you've listened to this podcast, you know nobody in Cincinnati, nobody on planet Earth feels like the Bengals have guards that are capable of starting at the National Football League level. Certainly not capable of starting in the AFC North and not capable of starting on what is supposed to be a contender in the AFC in and of itself. They've signed Lucas Patrick from the New Orleans Saints. They signed Cody Ford. They have Jackson Kirkland. None of those guys are quality starters in the National Football League. Now, the draft is happening in a couple of weeks, and I expect them to draft an offensive lineman, but I don't have a lot of high hopes for an offensive lineman. The last time the Bengals drafted an offensive lineman and he reached a second contract with the team was Clint Bowling, and that was like 15 years ago. They've drafted 20 offensive linemen since. None of them have reached a second contract. So Bengals fans should understandably be skeptical about the fact that the Bengals are kind of waiting for the draft to figure out some more competition in the guard spot. If you pay Joe Burrow a lot of money, which they have, and now they've paid Higgins and Chase, that's great. But it's all kind of pointless if you can't protect those investments. And for some reason, the Bengals have never um, valued the guard position. They just haven't. And it's bitten them in the butt several times, many times. And so one of the things I'd like to see is a change in that philosophy. We haven't seen it so far. They didn't go after the top available guards. They signed Lucas Patrick. That was about it. They signed Cody Ford. He's a career backup. Cordell Volson got benched last year. Jackson Kirkland's a nobody. They'll probably draft one, but they don't have a good track record of drafting guards. This right now, to me, is organizational failure. And I wish, and maybe they did, and I didn't see it, but I wish somebody would have asked Zac Taylor straight up, do you feel like you have two starting caliber guards on the roster right now? I think Zac could not answer that with a straight face and say yes. And for some reason, they've decided that they are likely done until the draft. Okay. Um, sure, there are some guys in the first round that I would feel pretty good about. But again, they don't draft that position early. They don't value it. And to then draft one in the first or second round would then be a deviation from what they've been doing for the last couple months, which is telling you that they don't care about that position or they don't value that position. What else? Zach and the Bengals have repeatedly talked about the idea that they have to get better with their starts. They have started slow several times over the course of Zach's career. They are 7-14-1 since Zach has been the head coach in the first 2 weeks of the season. That's not very good. Or in the first month of the season, whatever the number is. It's terrible. And they have repeatedly brought it up. They've repeatedly talked about it. They've repeatedly said, we know we have to start faster. Zach said the Bengals are going to play their starters more in preseason, and it's a major takeaway of the renewed emphasis towards a fast start. He said he's also looking for more cohesiveness off the field out of the OTAs, which are organized team activities. Those are going to be starting in a couple of weeks. So this is good. I would like to know what cohesiveness off the field in OTAs means. I would like a definition for that. Zach kind of alluded to more stuff with football IQ, more of players leading meetings, that sort of stuff. Okay. Okay. Whatever you got to do to start faster, they have to start fast, because when they have started at least 500 in that first month of the season, the Bengals went to the Super Bowl in the AFC Championship game. They've won the AFC North in those seasons. You have to start fast in the NFL, and hopefully the Bengals will continue to make tweaks and adjustments to do that. But again, it makes me nervous if you don't really know who your guards are and you're going up against guys in the preseason. That's a scary thought. What else did he say? He said almost nothing about Trey Hendrickson. He said there's a lot of love for his game and his impact, but they are, quote, working through the process and to be patient. This is a situation here where the Bengals kind of have all the leverage. I've kind of repeated myself about Hendrickson a lot because it's all kind of the same thing. The Bengals have leverage. Trey is like the 10th highest paid defensive end in the NFL right now at $21 million. The other guys are making over 30, 35, close to 40 if you're Myles Garrett. And the Bengals, I just don't think look at Trey Hendrickson and say that guy is worth 30 plus million dollars. And I keep getting the feeling, and this is not from anyone I've talked to, I keep getting the feeling that Trey is going to play on the deal he's currently on, and the Bengals are going to be okay with moving on from him. Now, I said this yesterday publicly on my Twitter account that I expect the Bengals to try to make Hendrickson play on his current deal. And privately, from someone I talked to in this business quite a bit, they shot that down. They said there's no way that's going to happen. So if you trust them, I mostly do, then maybe there is going to be some sort of a deal. But I'm sticking to my guns on this one. I think the Bengals and Hendrickson are probably not going to reach an agreement. Hopefully it's not a distraction in training camp, and then Trey will leave in the offseason. The Bengals will get a pick for him. And because of all this, it reinforces my point from the last podcast, which is I think they're going to draft an edge rusher. I said I had two guarantees last week, that the Bengals would draft an edge rusher and that they would trade back at some point in the first 3 rounds. I think it's now more likely that they trade back in the first 2 rounds, and maybe even most likely they trade back in the first round because of all these positions of need. It's not just offensive line and edge rusher. It's also safety. It's also linebacker. There are questions about those positions as well. And historically, the Bengals draft to replace players. They always do that. They generally fail, but they always do that. And so because they have lost their guards and they lost Alex Kappa and haven't figured out a guy who's probably a suitable replacement for him, and because they're going to be losing Trey Hendrickson, and because they're going to be losing Geno Stone, and because they're going to be losing Jermaine Pratt, they only have 6 picks in the draft. They're going to have to find a way to get more picks to fill more holes. Because of that, I think they'll trade back. I still think they'll go edge rusher in the first round. I know there's conversation surrounding Mike Green, who I believe had the most sacks in all of FBS. He's a guy out of Marshall, but unfortunately for Mike Green, he's had sexual assault allegations against him in both high school and in college. And so because of that, I don't know if the Bengals would take a chance on him. They just had character flaws blow up in their face with Jermaine Burton a couple of just this past season. There are other good players out there. James Pierce, the edge rusher from Tennessee. Donovan Jackson, the guard tackle from Ohio State. Kelvin Banks Jr., the guard tackle from Texas. There are good players that are going to be in that range. There's also good defensive tackles. I'm blanking on his name. Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle out of Oregon. Bit of a game record, would fit exactly what the Bengals are looking for. So when you have a lot of needs and you don't have a lot of picks, you got to find a way to get more picks. The other thing Zach said is that Jermaine Pratt is still on the team, and we'll see where that goes. Pratt requested a trade. He's probably not a part of the future of Al Golden's defense. And so because of that, he wants out, and he's trying to save himself some money and make as much money as he can. The Bengals are trying to save themselves some money by cutting him. They'll save almost $6 million if they do. But again, that's a need. Who's going to be the guy starting next to Logan Wilson? Akeem Davis-Gaither left in free agency. He went to the Arizona Cardinals. And so more needs, you need more picks. I don't think we'll see a ton of movement, whether by the Bengals or by anybody else, until after the draft. We're kind of in this point now where the draft is 24 days away or 23 days away or whatever it is. Teams are going to try to fill their needs as best they can then, and then in the immediate aftermath with undrafted free agents, and then we'll see where all the dust settles and where everybody's at. Then you might see the Bengals move Jermaine Pratt, or then you might see them go after another available offensive guard, depending on how the draft falls. It's never a great position to be in, and it's one of the maddening things about the Bengals is that they, because of their lack of efficiency or their lack of aggressiveness at times in free agency, they are never often in the position in the draft to draft the best player available. Because they screw up contracts and because they screw up free agency, they have pigeonholed themselves over and over again in the draft to being forced to draft a need instead of drafting the best player available. That's how you draft poorly, and that's what the Bengals have done for the last few years. They're kind of in that position again this year. The difference is there's a bunch of different needs. You just got to find out who's the best player available for this particular need. Now, many people would say draft the best player available no matter what. If he's a wide receiver, if he's a cornerback, if he's a linebacker, if he's a tackle, draft the best player available no matter what. I think there's some credence to that. The Bengals have too many needs, and history would suggest they're going to address a need in the draft. What else do we have here? Zac talked about playing from ahead more and assuming that the defense is going to be better. He's got to do a better job of helping that defense. That means they're going to try to be better at running the football. How are you going to be better at running the football when you don't have any guards? That's my question. What else? That's basically it. There was not a lot going on in those conversations in Palm Beach, Florida. At the annual meetings. But on Tuesday, which I'm recording this on Tuesday morning, later today, maybe tomorrow, we are going to hear from Katie Blackburn, the executive vice president of the Bengals, the daughter of Mike Brown, the granddaughter of the great Paul Brown. Katie basically runs the show with the Bengals these days. She's their chief negotiator. She's one of the most powerful people in football and a really influential woman in the game of football. That, for a long time, she was the first to do a lot of stuff, and she is a good person, a good woman, and there's a lot of questions for her and for this franchise right now, and she very, very, very rarely speaks to the media. She is supposed to speak today or tomorrow, and when she does, we'll try to break down those conversations and try to figure out exactly what's going on with the stadium lease. The Bengals have some stadium lease issues coming up right now with Paycor Stadium and kind of their plan moving forward in this era of the Bengals spending more money than they've ever spent ever. So we'll hopefully get some answers from Katie on that. All right, that does it for me. We'll try to do a little Q&A next week. I think we'll do a Q&A on Instagram, so make sure you follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on TikTok, on Twitter, at Auty Elmore. It's all the same, AUTYELMORE. If you have a moment, share the podcast with somebody and let them know about Ball Don't Lie. Also invite you to listen to me weekdays from 12 to 3. Show is called Cincy 360. It's on ESPN 1530 in Cincinnati. You can listen anywhere with the iHeartRadio app. I co-host that show with Tony Pike. We have a lot of fun. I invite you to listen. Also invite you to listen to Extra Innings on Sundays on 700 WLW. Just about every Sunday this baseball season, I will be on the air following our Reds Network coverage with the post-game show of the Cincinnati Reds. 700 WLW, also available anywhere on the iHeartRadio app. Thank you so much for listening. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. Tell everyone you know about the best podcast you heard today, which is the Ball Don't Lie podcast. In the meantime, I will see you next week. And as always, have fun, be safe, go Bucks.